Welcome, bienvenue. As the keener amongst you will have noticed, I am in the studio with Karen Bashford, and without trying to make her blush, she is glowy, and there's a reason for that. And it's been a period of time. How long were you out there for, Karen?
10 days.
And 10 days can change a life.
Yes.
Fair? Right.
Even a day, one day changed my life.
I want you to tell me where you were when you went out there, because you needed that. And then if you could describe to me, tell me the story of how it altered your brain chemistry in such a way as to make you the approachable, amazing, incredible woman that you are today.
Okay. Well, having lost my mother, I knew I needed a break, and I didn't know where I wanted to go. So I basically put a request out for recommendations, but nothing ticked the box for me. It was almost like I needed that break, but it wasn't where everyone would normally go. So
Right.
Having been to Egypt in 2012 with a couple of girlfriends, I knew that all along I wanted to return. However, Egypt at this time of year is 40 degrees, between 35 and 40 degrees, which, as I wanted to go into the desert, was perhaps a bit hot. However, driving to see a girlfriend, it was like, oh, for God's sake, Karen, you just need to go. Just trust that everything will work out for you. Just do it. So I did. So flights were booked within a couple of hours of deciding to say yes. Itinerary for the trip was organised through a tour operator I'd spoken to previously. And I think it was about 15 days later, I actually got on the plane to go to Egypt on my own. But you cannot buy Egyptian pounds in the UK. So I was arriving with no money. Yes, I could have taken American dollars or European currency, but I didn't. I chose not to. Everything was on card. The trip was organised so that I would be picked up at the airport on arrival. However, I could not use my phone in Egypt until I had a new SIM. And I walked out the airport lounge into the greeting area with no idea who I was meeting.
So you had no Egyptian language skills. You had ostensibly no cash, and no communication, and you didn't know what the face or of the person you were meeting was, or even his name, right?
No, nothing. Absolutely nothing.
This sounds like it's made the beginning of a disaster movie.
It could have been. It could have been. But I had no fear. There was nothing to fear. I just knew that I was going to be all right. It was something within me that simply said, just go with the flow. You've arrived. The flight was great. You're here. This was at 1 o'clock in the morning, by the way.
Wow.
So it wasn't as if the place was teeming with people.
It's a little nuts. It's a little nuts. Little nuts.
All right. So I started wandering around looking for Vodafone box, because that was the SIM card I was told to get, because it had the biggest cover for Egypt. And because I was physically going into the desert, I wanted some kind of communication abilities. So that was, and these gentlemen who run the local taxi firms approached me and said, do you need any help? And I looked at them and simply said, yes. Something I would never, ever have said previously. I would have said, no, I'm fine. Everything's okay. I'd have continued looking for the Vodafone box and everything else. But it was like, Karen, you are here. You need to contact these people. These people are offering to help you. Say yes. And I did. And they were brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. They phoned the company for me. and spoke to them. They pointed me and took me to the Vodafone box so I could get my SIM organised. And then they took me outside to meet the gentleman that was coming to pick me up. And that was all because I said yes. Something I would not normally have done.
So saying yes. But hang on a moment. Hold the phone. You have had a predisposition to not trust the male of the species at all, really. No. In fact, you'd had multiple occasions to knock any trust you may have built in such. So here you were in a country that is very male dominated, and you had to reach out for help to a man. How was that for you?
It was natural. It felt so natural, which thinking about it afterwards was really surprising. I always seek help in my business if I need it and such like that. But when it comes to me personally, I rely on my girlfriends, and they know how bad I am for asking for help. So quite often they'll offer help to the point where I got no option but to say yes. But to have a man actually approach me and say, can I help you? And for me to say yes, that was so surprising to me. It was almost like there was a part of me that said, you're in a world where there's no females. You have to trust the men, because literally there are so few females that could have helped me be available that there was no option but to say yes to men. And my whole trip has been thanks to the support of men that has allowed me to travel around Egypt to places I would have never been able to go as a woman on her own, or for that matter, even with women in a group, they would not have been able to go to, because it would have been too, it's not scary. It's like, it's getting past that barrier, I suppose, of stepping into a world that was male dominated.
Right.
Because everything is male focused. The shops are male focused. The taxis are all male. The restaurants are mostly men. There's very few women in the restaurants. Even the women going into the restaurant to eat are few and far between, unless it's with the family. So
you were forced, but you were forced to reshape your normal reactions.
Yeah.
Now you've always described me since that point, and it's very recent. We don't know, a day. You told me that it felt easy.
It felt so easy just to say yes and to put my trust in the men. It was almost like I had to go to Egypt to recognize that I could trust men. I had no option, basically. If I wanted to be out there, I had to trust the men. And yet I hadn't realized how little trust I had in men. And that was the surprising part.
Right.
You know, I've dealt with my, excuse the language, shit, as far as I was concerned, but there was this one aspect of me that was still very much alive and kicking, and that was trusting men. And that was because of my previous relationships. And had I not gone to Egypt, I probably would still not trust men. But now I'm just willing to say, yeah, okay, let's see where this conversation goes. Let's see where, getting into a taxi. I even, having come back to the UK last week, went to see my friend, and I stopped and picked a hitchhiker up who happened to be a man.
You picked up a hitchhiker?
Yeah.
Wow.
that's the shift that's been in me. I'd have normally driven straight past. If it had been a girl, I might have considered it, but not a man. But literally, I saw him, everyone was driving past, and there's something in me that said, stop. And I stopped for him. And we had an interesting conversation about Egypt.
Of course.
And he was just so grateful that I'd stopped for him. And I actually went out of my way to drop him off at the station where he needed to be before I went on to my friend. I would have never, ever have done that.
So
I would have hesitated.
I mean, I'm not over egging this. This is a sea change for you.
Yeah. Massive, massive change.
Can you draw any inference from this? Can you is this giving you an epiphany of sorts?
Yes. Obviously, because now I can trust myself to trust men, my connections with men will be totally different for a start off. There won't be this kind of barrier that I'd had in place. Not that I was conscious of it. It was just my dealing with them was slightly different to what I would with a woman.
Which is totally understandable. You know, it one's reaction to things is often coloured by instance, especially if they were harrowing or traumatic, and you'd had both. So it's amazing because in a bizarre kind of way, it was the most pleasant, warmest therapy you've ever received.
Yeah. And they cared for me so much. It was amazing how much they did care for me. Yes, obviously I was paying them because they were taking me around Egypt. But even so, their care of me was exceptional. You know, they made sure that I had food to eat because I don't eat meat. Egypt is very much meat-based. So even finding a simple meal for me was a struggle. Yeah, and we got to that point where we were joking that I could have the soup, but I could only have half of it because half was meat. So just imagine the rest was not meat kind of thing. We were having jokes like that. And I got told off by a restaurant owner because I dared to ask for a cup of mint tea with my dinner. No, we don't do that here. Okay, I'm not going to argue with you. Just bring it afterwards then, thank you. So there was this kind of natural banter going on, even though I couldn't speak the language. Quite a few in the restaurants, especially, quite a few of them could speak English or reasonable English. But the guys were great at translating. But I did pick up a couple of times that they were obviously talking about me, because it was unusual to see two Egyptian men with a white woman, especially one that was older than them. So that was quite interesting. But I trusted them enough to know that they wouldn't put me down. They might laugh with the guys, but they wouldn't put me down. And as I say, they cared about me. One time they took me to a ruin, and there was probably about 50 steps. Now, I am still overweight. I still struggle with my breathing at times. But they checked on me practically every step. They stopped and let me catch my breath. They made sure that I was safe. On one occasion, my sugar levels just dropped, and they literally sat in full sun with me until I could move again to be able to get to shade. They were so concerned about me. They would open the car door for me. I'm not used to stuff like that, but they just did it naturally. It was almost as if, you're here, we're treating you as our friend. And it was phenomenal. It created a massive, massive appreciation in me of being respected by men.
So can we draw from this perhaps a wider principle about something that we can all learn from this, because you took a leap of faith. You put yourself in a position where you'd have to say yes. You couldn't have said no, could you? You end up being a shriveled, dried up husk. So in a way,
you wouldn't have had my holiday if I'd said no, because I wouldn't have found my taxi driver for a start off.
Right. So you had so you kind of had to let go of preconceptions in some ways.
Yeah, totally.
Is that fair?
Yeah, absolutely.
And ladies and gentlemen, if I dare I say it, look at her now. She looks open, accepting, interested, all those good things. She was most of those things before, but it was more reticence. It was more guarded. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Maybe we all need to go to Egypt. Anyway.
Well, I'm going to run a retreat if I can over there. So why not?
Look. So it's in the inception of new things.
Yeah.
Right. Guys, I hope you find these stories useful, entertaining, interesting, but also perhaps if you are watching and you see this, maybe you can take from this a note of optimism and positive mental attitude. She was forced into a position where she had to feel positively about people that she normally would have felt wary of, and now she's ended up in a far better place.
I'm so grateful that I actually took the chance and went. Really, really am. I gained so much for myself, but I've also gained because now I know that's something that a lot of women will do, is protect themselves because of the abuse they've been through.
Right.
It's something that I can help them deal with because now I'm conscious of it. Before I wasn't conscious of it.
Yes, so I think
to
deal with any issue, one first has to recognize it exists. And on that bombshell, thank you so much, Karen Bashford. I'm always on the learning end of this, but it was a great story, and it was so fresh and so real. And so now I thought maybe in this time when distrust is growing in the world, you should hear of an occasion where trust actually bore out. There's actually led to a thing. You're actively thinking of having that retreat in Egypt now. You would never have considered that before. And Egypt wasn't even the first choice. It just was. Yes, amazing. Guys, we are here weekly. We try to be here weekly. Try and watch out for us, usually on Thursdays. And if you can give some feedback, I do get them from time to time. I see you guys watching, and thank you very much for watching. I appreciate that. But do approach Karen Bashford. She's in a new, open, approachable phase of her existence, and she'll give you honest feedback and supportive feedback on whatever is holding you back in your life. Thank you very much, Karen. And to the rest of you, remember, try and keep your feet on the ground, but do reach for the stars, and have yourself a wonderful weekend, and look after that mental health. Bye-bye now.
Bye.